Over the past decade, there has been 2 occurrences where companies defrauded investors being related to NASCAR. These occurrences not only ruined the lives of the people that started them, but the drivers associated with them. This is defrauding in NASCAR. Justin Boston was a driver that had dreams of going into NASCAR. His father, Robert Boston, co-founded an electronic recycling company called Sloop in 2012. The next year, he sponsored his son to get him an ARCA ride with Venturini Motorsports, one of the best teams in ARCA. Justin Boston wasn't actually too bad of a driver. He got top 5s in half of the races he finished, and half of his DNFs were due to mechanical failures. He ended up with the Rookie of the Year award and 3rd in points. The next year, in 2014, he won twice in ARCA. He also got a shot to drive a truck and an Xfinity car. His 2 Xfinity starts were at Kentucky and Dover with Joe Gibbs Racing. He finished 9th at Kansas and 12th at Dover. The next year, he got to go full-time in the truck series for Kyle Busch Motorsports in the 54 truck, but by race 9, he was out of the truck. People assumed that he was let go due to poor performance. Justin said it was because he wanted what's best for him, but the problem might have been on his car the whole time. Soon after, Sloop filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and was sued by Kyle Busch Motorsports for over $4 million for missed payments. It turned out Sloop was spending more money on Justin Boston's racing career than anything else for the company. Also, Robert Boston defrauded investors out of $25 million. He would have to spend 10 years in prison and pay $20 million back to the victims. But if you think $25 million's a lot, you haven't even seen the next story. From 2015 to 2019, you may have seen a company known as DC Solar sponsor in NASCAR. DC Solar would mainly sponsor the team Chip Ganassi Racing, and it was their primary sponsor for their Xfinity program. They even sponsored some of their Cup cars and even some races. But in 2019, the House of DC Solar's CEO, Jeffrey Karpoff, was raided by the FBI. DC Solar was founded in 2005. A decade later, they'd start sponsoring in NASCAR. They sponsored a few teams, but the main team they sponsored was Chip Ganassi Racing. They sponsored their Xfinity program in nearly every race. They would also sponsor races at tracks like Las Vegas and Phoenix. DC Solar was a company that made solar generators. They claimed to make 12,000, but only around 3,000 to 5,000 of those were actual generators. The rest were originally thought to have GPS trackers on them, but it later turned out that those GPS trackers were just buried in random places of California.
Coming out of turn number 4, he's going to earn his first win in the Xfinity Series.
Good job, boys.
Ross Chastain would win his first Xfinity race in the DC Solar 300, making him a favorite in the series. He was going to get a shot going full-time next year, but that's when Jeffrey Karpoff's home was raided. Turns out, DC Solar was actually the biggest Ponzi scheme in the history of Southern California. He defrauded around $1 billion from investors, and after the raid, he owed Chip Ganassi Racing close to $4.5 million. That's not even including the money they had to owe ISC, the owners of the tracks they sponsored. Soon after, DC Solar would file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Because DC Solar was the main sponsor for Ganassi's Xfinity program, they had to shut down entirely, and made Ross Chastain have to leave top-tier equipment that he had just got for the first time in his career. But in 2021, he got to go back in the 42 car, but this time in the Cup Series. But at the end of the year, Ganassi would shut down as a whole and be bought out by Trackhouse. And I think you know what he did next.
Chastain, you're gonna have to move them both. You're gonna have to move them both. Yeah.
And around goes Olsen off the bumper of Chastain.
Gonna have to. Here he goes.
And he's in the wall.
Opens the door up for the one of Ross Chastain.
Kyle Larson added.
Oh my gosh.
He's gonna do it. He's won his way into the championship. And the first the line. The one in Phoenix. Take a look at what he did. I have never
getting second place in the points for the first year of the new team, I guess you could say Ross Chastain is doing just fine without Ganassi.